the state.
We want to assure the public that we will no room for insecurity, no room for criminality.
All the adjoining streets leading to the Eid grounds are going to be manned by security personnel. That's my security personnel in conjunction with others.
Still on security, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the nation's armed forces and other security agencies to step up their game and see that the country is safe and secure for people to go about their normal activities without fear. The president gave the directive at a meeting he held with the security arm of government at the presidential villa in Abuja.
We have seen that a lot of improvement on the security situation in the country, more especially in Zamfara and Benue states. If you go along the Niger Delta also, the same thing. But in the northeast, we are having worrisome report, which we looked into critically and we are taking also a decision on it.
Citizens of Zamfara state have attributed the incessant killings and destruction of property in the state to the collapse of the societal structures, such as traditional and convention, justice structures, and the security apparatus. This came from town hall meeting organized in Gusau by the Nigerian Bar Association, which had a high-power delegation to assess the happening in the state.
We attach religious sentiment, ethnic sentiments, and geographical sentiments to security issues.
If you are really working hard, why can't you collect the arms and ammunition from the bandits? You are able to go there and collect those arms and ammunition from them, but you come to us, those of us that are hunters, and come to protect our villages in the night, and then you arrest us, seize our guns, and leave us open.
The Nigerian Air Force says it has destroyed Boko Haram terrorist hideouts near Ara in Borno State. A statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola, indicates that the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole between 10th and 18th August 2018 conducted massive day and night attacks against remnants of the terrorists and their facilities. The attack, which were preceded by days of intensive intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance missions, were planned and executed based on credible intelligence, indicating that the Boko Haram terrorists were making more to regroup around the fringes of Sambisa. Well, President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the instrument of accession to the International Cocoa Agreement of 2010 following approval by the Federal Executive Council. The accession strengthened cooperation between export and importing member countries and improved their cocoa economics through active and better focused project development and strategies for capacity building. The 2010 agreement is also expected to implement measures towards increasing the income of cocoa farmers, take effective account of food safety issues, and help establish social, economic, and environmental sustainability so that farmers are rewarded for producing cocoa that meets ethical and environmental considerations. Well, that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Joy and Kinsley after the break.
Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics refutes media reports that Nigeria is still in recession. Let's get details of this and more on Business News with Joy Uzo.
Happy Eid al-Kabir to all Muslims. Thanks for joining me on Business News. Financial institutions and other major economic activities will be closed for business today and tomorrow in commemoration of Eid al-Kabir. NTA Business News visited the Utako Market, one of the markets in Abuja metropolis, for a check on how buyers shopped and sellers fared this Salah. Though it was a race against time for those celebrating the Salah and others engaged in regular shopping. We found out that prices of some food items increased as against their normal rates. However, most staples maintained their prices with noticeable reduction in a few others.
For this salad, they can't put our money. Before they reduce some small. But for this salad, they don't make a cost. This one now buy at 12,000. Before they buy like 9,000, 8,005. I would say like 15 or 16.
If you buy cost, you have to also sell to gain your money back.
And to stocks, equities market extends gaining streak to open the week positive. The NSE All-Share Index records 0.21% gain to close at 35,341.90 basis points. Here is a graphic representation of Monday's closing figures. Still on business news, the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, has reaffirmed that Nigeria is out of recession, and at no time did it state otherwise. This is after media reports that the Statistician General of the Federation, Yemi Kale, through an electronic media, said the economy was still in recession. The Bureau, in a statement, however, maintained that the economy is in the second stage of recovery, heading towards sustainable growth, which is the last stage and should not in any way be mistaken for being in recession. That's business news. Many thanks for watching. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy, for the business package. Next now for us, we'll take a look at the front pages of today's newspapers in our review segment.
Let's start our review by taking a look at the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. And it comes with a bold headline which says, that's for the Kika, Saraki to Tinubu, your loyalty to Buhari, all about 2023. And it has two riders there. False precedent on relationship with NAS. Come for integrity test, APC dares Senate President. You can get details of that story on page 6. And below it is a picture story which shows President Muhammadu Buhari being welcomed by Governor Aminu Bello Masari of Katsina State on his arrival at the Umaru Musa Yar'Adua Airport, Katsina, en route Daura, to mark the al-Kabir festival yesterday. Let's move quickly to this day for the headline story there. It says, Saraki Tambuwa fire back at Tinubu, say he is a pretender, and it comes with one rider. I can also vividly recall that he himself always expressed his displeasure with the style of the government, and also mentioned that he had equally suffered disrespect from the same government which we all worked to put in office. Let's hear what you have to say.
That's right. Both the Punch and the New Telegraph also have the replies by Tambuwal and Saraki to Tinubu as their lead stories. So politics is reigning as the lead copies for the papers that we have this morning. The Punch captures it this way. Tinubu's 2023 presidential ambition reason for supporting Buhari, and that's attributed to Senate President Saraki. And for the New Telegraph, the headline is busier because it comes with at least 4 riders. It says, Tinubu under fire. That's the New Telegraph. And first rider says, Saraki, Asiwaju wants to be president in 2023. Tambuwal, he tried to destroy APC after he was denied the VP slot. Wike, I never discussed PDP presidential ticket with you. And APC to Senate President, you are not fit to be president. Details can be found on page 2. And by the way, I think that the headlines and the riders, they speak for themselves. That's it's just politicians, you know, who throwing punches at each other. You know, one camp versus the other. If they were still in the same political party, chances are that this might not have occurred. So,
but again, are you surprised? I mean, as we head up towards 2019 general elections, this is expected.
Absolutely so, absolutely, especially now that they're in different political groups. So that's to be expected. But you can read the details of the story, and I'm sure there will be more accusations and counter-accusations, punches and counter-punches in the days and weeks ahead. So let's go for other headlines. That's below the nameplate of the New Telegraph. You have a window of 4 headlines there. Salah, that's the Salah celebration. Saraki, Dogara, Kalu, Atiku, governance, and PDP preach tolerance. I won't surrender to corruption. That's President Buhari. Details can be found on page 4. And Biafra, court remands 114 IPOB women in prison. That's on page 9. Now, this is a running story. Confusion as Oyo denies, then admits music house demolition. With the writer there, Ayefele, notice landed me in hospital. Details can be found on page 8. That's a running copy, by the way. And you also have the story on the front page of the Punch newspaper, right at the foot of the front page there. It says, Ayefele's bidding demolition will follow due process, says Oyo. Let's take other headlines from here that will come to
right, let's go quickly to This Day newspaper. And above the nameplate is another heartwarming story. NBS, that's talking about the National Bureau of Statistics. With 3.45 trillion naira, oil sector got highest credit in the second quarter of 2018, and they insist that the economy is out of recession. And beside the picture story that you see there, below the main headline there, step up your game, Buhari tells security chiefs. Military kills 21 headsmen militia in Benue and Nasarawa. Let's move quickly to the Blueprint newspaper. Below the nameplate, there's a story that says, Northeast security worrisome, FG admits. Buhari tasks security chiefs and departs for Salah in Daura. And at the foot of the paper, the front page there, Soldier 21 headers killed in Benue gun battle. Details of that story is on page 5. And banks record 1.60 trillion naira ATM transaction in the second quarter of 2018. Al-Kabir, Buhari, Saraki, Dogara, Ekoremadu urge peace.
All right, Joy, the story of the demolition of the building housing, yes, housing Fresh FM, that's right. The story has been on since last week, and if you recall, we'll discuss it yesterday. We don't have the photographs on the front pages of the papers this morning, but yesterday the photos were published of the partial demolition of the building. The building is at Ibadan, which is the capital of Oyo State. That's the number of issues arise. At some point, the Oyo State government denied that it wasn't responsible for the partial demolition. At another point, there was an admission that, yes, they did it, but that they followed due process. But the matter is in court.
But I heard that the governor went there to commend the musician and what he's doing at the moment with the radio house. So I find it quite difficult to understand what went wrong before the demolition. Well,
the state government claims that the building is in contravention of the planning regulations of the state. And they had served them notices. That's to say the property developer, they have served them notices. Now, what is crucial in this matter is if the issue was already before a competent court of jurisdiction, why was there the seeming impatience with the partial, and it took place on Sunday, in the early hours of Sunday. And from the photographs that were published in the papers yesterday, I mean, there were questions that arose, assuming the intention was to say, okay, this building contravenes the planning regulations, we have to remove it, provided there are no other structures in the location that also similarly contravene the building code or building regulations. From the way the partial demolition took place yesterday, it seemed as if, I mean, from a casual observer's position, that the intention was merely to cripple the business.
And that's the view of most Nigerians who have been speaking to that same issue.
Precisely. If you wanted to demolish the building, bring the building down and then evacuate the rubble. But we didn't see that yesterday. Of course, as we indicated, the matter is in court, and we do hope that they sort themselves out. Now, there are security stories still on the front page of the papers. Let's go very quickly now to the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper, on the earpiece there, says, just beside the nameplate, security report from Northeast worrisome, Defense Minister admits. Joy, that you also have that story.
Same story.
Yes,
the federal government has admitted that there is a challenge with the security situation, and they are urging security operatives to also step up their game to see what they can do. Well,
that's the outcome of one of the resolutions, if you like, of the meeting held yesterday between the president upon his return from his 10-day vacation and the security chiefs. To say, look, step up your game. We had seen quite some remarkable improvement in the Northeast, but the spate of recurrent attacks is quite worrisome, and that is to say that the Boko Haram elements are not letting up in their continuing attacks down IDP camps or in villages. The other day, they sacked an entire village and razed 40 houses in a particular community. So it's significant that we recognize. Of course, recently, Joy, you also recall that the military high command had also reshuffled the key personnel, commanders and other operatives who are in that particular zone. And perhaps, the details of this are not matters that we can't discuss on air. But there was a report last week about soldiers, who were protesting at the Maiduguri airport because they said that they were being redeployed again to another location in the theater of operation in Borno after they had spent several years, 3 to 4 years, at the same location, and that this was against the rule of rotation of defense forces, and they were firing into the air, and that's, of course, the military authorities waded in and they tried to sort it out. But these are issues that they also look into to check out the morale of their staff, the commitment, the morale of their troops, and the commitment, to
and even the welfare.
Anti-insurgency efforts. That's right. Now let's take, of course, in Benue. Now the military has effectively stepped in, and we see the story there right at the foot of the front page of the other paper I have, which is the New Telegraph. And Joy, you also have that paper. It says,
yes,
Army, that's the foot of the front page of the New Telegraph. The Army neutralizing 21 herdsmen in Benue, but losing one soldier, unfortunately. And then suspects facilitates sale of arms and ammunition in prison. Details of that story can be found on pages 5 and 9. Yes. Joy, there's a story there. That's, by the way, I think you have that on the front page of this day. I also have it here on the front page of the Punch newspaper. It's an earpiece. It has to do again with the word voice that we are hearing from the south eastern part of the country. And that is to say 2019, that's the kicker. Emmanuel and Akpabio in war of words over governorship poll. Emmanuel, of course, Udom Emmanuel is the governor of Akwa Ibom State, and Akpabio was his predecessor. Akpabio, most recently, was the minority leader of the Senate, and he, of course, has ditched the PDP and moved over to the APC.
Well, the caption here, it says, Akpabio, APC will take over Akwa Ibom like Hitler took Poland.
Who is the Hitler in this case?
Ask me, I'm wondering. You'll find out about it on page 34.
That's right. I think it's apparently some would say that that's inappropriate, describing whether the APC or describing whoever the individual is as Hitler. Like the Hitlerite invasion, it's one that is unfortunate, and we do hope that they would tone down on the rhetoric that we are hearing in the meantime. Right. NECO, that's right at the foot of the front page of the Punch newspaper. NECO releases results, over 70% pass English and maths.
We have that. If you go to the blueprint also, beside one of the headlines there, it says 71% students pass English, maths in 2018, June, July, NECO.
And another headline there, two other headlines, this time Punch newspaper, again at the foot of the front page. 2 women buy their old twins for 1.8 million naira in Imo. Pages 4 and 5. And Nigeria avoids FIFA hammer as federal government recognizes PINIC. Again, that's the ongoing, never-ending squabble in the house of football. NFF and the leadership squabble. So Nigeria, of course, has now avoided the FIFA hammer by Nigeria recognizing Pinnick as the authentic leader of the Nigerian Football Federation. Let's take our editorial. Editorial is from Daily Independent newspaper, and it's at page 16. And appropriately, it's on al-Kabir 2018. The editorial says that for 3 days that the Eid lasts, Muslims should be moderate in their conduct and consumption, bearing in mind that Salah meat should be shared among family, neighbors, and friends, particularly the less privileged. Says the Eid should be marked, but of course with display of love and care for all. Prayers should be offered for the safe return of pilgrims and those who travel to celebrate with their families. And the paper, of course, like we here at NTA, wishing Nigerians a rewarding Eid al-Kabir.
That's right, and it's in line with our focus this morning.
That's right.
This is the season when we should talk more about love, peace, and caring for one another. That seems to have disappeared so fast from our society today.
Regrettably so, regrettably so. We'll get our guests to drill down on this topic when we return from this short break.
Thank you for staying with us, and good morning, Nigeria. Now, before we begin our conversation on sustaining peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, let's take this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
It is no longer news that Nigeria remains Africa's most populous country. High endowments in both minerals and human resources have also been an envy to the rest of the world. Experts, however, believe that the huge potentials of Nigeria are yet to be tapped after over 100 years of amalgamation and nearly 57 years of independence. They say many factors account for the lack of progress in the nation, which include corruption, greed, selfishness, ethnicity, insecurity, religious disharmony, and general lack of unity. Perhaps there is no time in the nation's history that the need for peaceful coexistence is more imperative than now, when all efforts are on deck for the development of the nation, even against agitations from different sections of the country. Many posit that as a nation that has proven to the world that it can forge ahead despite its diversity, evident in multiple ethnic, tribal and religious backgrounds, Nigeria's current challenges can be turned to opportunities if there is peace, friendship, good neighborliness and solidarity for peaceful coexistence and sustainable development. The responsibility of making this turnaround possible therefore becomes the responsibility of all, particularly those entrusted with leadership positions. As Nigerian Muslims join the rest of the world to mark Eid al-Kabir, lessons from this period of sacrifice are expected to provide a good platform for guests on Good Morning Nigeria to discuss the imperatives of peaceful coexistence in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much, Yusuf, for that backgrounder. We are being joined now by guests with us here in the Abuja studios. First, we'd like to welcome the Public Relations Officer of the Abuja Muslim Forum. He is Jibril Ibrahim. Engineer Jibril, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
All right. And also here with us in the studios is an educational consultant based here in Abuja, Mrs. Shakirat Oriyomi. Mrs. Oriyomi, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And also here in the studios is the chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria, North Central Zone, the Reverend Dr. Israel Akonji. Akonji, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
And a familiar face now, Good Morning Nigeria, motivational speaker, Obina Irakwa. Pleasure to welcome you to this edition of the program.
Always my pleasure, sir.
All right. And then to all of you, Barkadi Salah, we say here from Good Morning Nigeria. All right, Joe,
let's start with Jibril Ibrahim. Today is Eid al-Kabir and people are out celebrating. But beyond the celebration, what is the significance of the day?
Well, thank you very much. Today, the core of this celebration is actually a remembrance of the sacrifice that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, known as Abraham, actually made. So today, behind that celebration is actually the spirit of sacrifice, the spirit of relying on God in everything you do, believing in God. So he epitomizes the whole concept of religion, the whole concept of relying on God. Because you had a situation where for his first test in reliance was when he was asked to take his son Ismail and drop him in a desert. A desert, no water, no buildings. Drop him, a baby, with the mother and leave. And he was like, if God said I should do it, I'll do it. And he did that. When he left, God told him to come back when the child was barely 11 years. And he comes back and he was with the son and he was having the dream vision. And it was like, you should sacrifice this son, your son, for God. And it's a tough decision, but he still went ahead, met the son. Look, this is the vision I have from God, that I should sacrifice you for God. And the son is like, okay, if that's what the vision you have seen from God, go ahead. It was at that point when he was now going to sacrifice the son that God said, now you have perfected, you are the perfect example of submitting to God. So at that point, God now sent the ram as the replacement, which is what the ram is about. Sent the ram as replacement, that now you have shown that you believe in God. So really, that's belief in God. This is like the peak of belief. That's why for virtually all monotheistic religion, Abraham is the peak of the matter. So really, the real issue here beyond the celebration is remembering to, one, rely on God. You are limited in your capacity. You are just a human being. And the second component of it is sacrifice. So really, this, like the ram we are slaughtering today, that every Muslim home that can afford it is slaughtering today, will be divided into 3 parts. The first part is what you eat with your family and celebrate with. The second part is shared among the poor, your neighbors, your friends and family. And then you can keep the third part for use afterwards. So you see a lot of sharing, a lot of sacrificing, a lot of things going on today are beyond the whole celebration thing and going to the Eid. So it's a lot.
Jibril, thank you very much. Maybe I'll come over now to Shakira, to Riyomi, to explain, to expatiate on what you have just said. For purposes of conceptual understanding, you've talked about sacrifice as being one of the important lessons from the season. Is it really sacrifice or a question of obedience? Because during Ramadan, now this is an issue that we have also discussed here, is to say, look, sacrifice your pleasures, sacrifice your leisures, sacrifice, share. But is this sacrifice that we're looking at this time, or it's obedience? God says, do this. You hear him clearly, and then you proceed to do it.
Well, I say a bit of, or let me say a furtherance of what you call sacrifice. If you look at the whole idea of before having a child eventually, and then having to now sacrifice the child for God again, it's better described as a commitment to God's order. How do I mean? No matter how difficult it appears, I mean, we all know how painful it can be, especially a child that was not cheap, I should say. A child that took a while before he came, it was given to him. And yet he was committed. Yet he was willing to be steadfast. He was actually steadfast. And God, in the end, being merciful, came to prove to him that if you are dutiful to me, I have a whole lot to offer. And that's part of a chapter of the Quran where Allah says, whoever is dutiful is going to provide him a way out. He says further, whoever is dutiful is going to provide for him from means the least expected. Whoever is dutiful is going to make sufficient for him, from means beyond anyone's comprehension. So really the whole concept is for us to be sure, for our beliefs to go beyond just a belief in our heart, but translate to what we do as our deed and how we relate to others. And of course, when we do this, it does not only benefit let's, for instance, in this case, a Prophet Abraham, as a father, as a leader, being committed equally showed on the child. Because, of course, as he was committed, the child was equally committed to him, meaning the child did not disagree when he said, this is what God wants of you. So it's, of course, equally teaches us to lead by example. As a father, as a leader, we should do what we expect others around us to do. So basically, in this case, it's beyond sacrifice. It's equally about keeping to God's order willingly, the commitment to stay with God's order.
So in other words, I still want to go back to Kingsley because the issue of obedience is key. I mean, you can't go to make a sacrifice or carry out an assignment for God if you do not obey. So I want you to still emphasize on the issue of obedience because that is key to the society in which we live today.
Yeah, definitely. Obedience is the number one. It's when you are obedient that you can actually get committed to a particular order, that you can remain steadfast, and then you can spread it to people around you. So for us as Nigerians, it's very important that we're obedient. It's very important that we are very true to what we call our creed. People would say Nigerians are the ones that are most religious. Unfortunately, it does not show in the everyday life. So for us as Nigerians, for us to have beyond measures, for us to be comfortable, for us to be convenient, I think the number one for us is that we claim as obedience, that we claim as our belief, that we claim as our creed should relate to our everyday life, such that in the end, the obedience can now lead to sacrifice. It's only when you truly obey, when you truly believe that you make sacrifice, and then you can keep to the same, you can, be committed to the order, God's order. And of course, that should show in our relationship with one another, whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, their belief should translate to our actions, and it would definitely bring about peaceful coexistence, and we'll all be happy in the end.
Thank you, Shakira. Well, Kingsley, before we bring in Reverend and Obin, I think we should go back
to Engineer Jubril. I actually wanted to pursue this issue of obedience and sacrifice. And the whole spirit of the season. How do we then translate this or relate it to secular occurrences? Yes, God speaks to us. We recognize the reason why we should do this. Obeying God also means obeying the laws of nature. But some of the occurrences that we find in our society today would not appear to be in tandem with God's commandments. So how, therefore, can the faithful utilize the occasion of the season to remind themselves of the celestial injunctions that are inherent in what they're celebrating?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's for this period, that's a big issue to deal with. The issue here is for you to obey, for you to be committed. The first step is that the leader, the source of that instruction, the source of whatever belief, needs to be something you truly, agree with. So in a secular system like we have the country now, if we truly believe that this is Nigeria, I'm a Nigerian, then the leadership, what the leadership shows. For example, currently we have relatively stable sort of leadership that a lot of people believe in. That belief and the actions of those leaders would, to a large extent, affect how people, follow and obey what they give. In this period, God had shown faithfulness to Abraham even before the advent of his child. So that relationship was established. So for me, I think a lot of the message, the benefit you can get from this period is the fact that if you truly believe that Nigeria needs to move forward, then we have a duty from the leadership and the followership and the people to, do our own parts. God is always keeping to his promise. So if we have the leaders keeping to their promise, cutting down on corruption, cutting down on so many of these issues of the society, it is easier to, you will naturally see followers also following suit. So this is a period where God had shown his faithfulness to Abraham, and Abraham over time, and Abraham also showed his faithfulness. So really, I would think this period is a chance for the faithful, Muslim faithfuls, to translate the message of Abraham in obeying God, into our daily lives in the society by, you know, going extra mile to be tolerant, to going extra mile to be, you know, for example, the issue of sharing the ram into 3 parts. That's a chance for you to remember that the ram, whatever you have, is not for only you. So there are a lot of these salient points that both within the Muslim community, we need to even emphasize it. And then this chance and a program like this also gives us a chance to share it with the non-Muslim community, that this is what we are trying to do. This is what Islam is pushing us to do. So globally, even if you check, like I had even in Afghanistan, where they've been at war for so long, now they've had a truce because of this period. Because if Allah assists and that message comes, that realization of the essence of this period comes to you, you will see the people's hearts are softer. From the Muslim to other people, and from other people, if they understand what the essence of that period is, it's also a chance for them to know that this guy is going to be particularly nice this period. Let's crystallize a new relationship. Let's crystallize moving forward from there. So I think the big deal there is, how do we know some of these salient points, some of these issues that are associated with this period.
All right, thank you very much. Just one point to also clarify. Yesterday was Holy Arafat Day. That's the eve of Eid. What is the significance of the Arafat Day on the eve of Eid? Let's bring in again Mrs. Oriyomi.
Well, Arafat Day is one of those very special days. In fact, it's about the best day of the whole year. Arafat Day is such a special occasion that we seize the opportunity to beg for forgiveness. And the promise for those that are able to truly believe that they will be forgiven and seek forgiveness is that they do not only get forgiveness, but they equally get a lot of blessings afterwards. It's expected that, like someone would always say, the Arafat Day analogy is like someone who had a loan and was requested to pay back the loan and then now get a grant thereafter. So it means when you are forgiven, a lot of blessings come with it. It's stated in so many verses of the Quran where Allah says, when I forgive you, I will then open the heavens where you have reigned, you have children, a lot of barakah blessings, and lots of other things you can imagine. So Arafat Day is a day that we go all out to seek forgiveness, and it's believed that when we seek forgiveness and Allah grants it, we get to be forgiven the previous year sins and then even the year that's to come after. And that's why you see a lot of us would fast, a lot of us would pray. So Arafat Day is a very significant event for us. And as for those able to make it to Hajj, Arafat is a very important part of the rite that you must not miss if truly you want the reward for Hajj.
Okay. Thank you very much. Joy, yes. I think let's bring in the Reverend Israel Akanji now.
That's right.
I mean, our Christian viewers who are listening to this program and then listening to the explanations by our two guests who have been speaking would find these similarities in the biblical passages, you know, with regard to issue of Abraham, you know, his son, and then obedience to the commandment, and then God said, no, listen, this sacrifice shouldn't take place. Instead, use that ram. Give us, you know, a sense of the relationship between these two religions. And then from there on, we now begin to ask ourselves, why do we have this antagonism that has crept up on us?
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I want to again greet our Muslim brothers and sisters and say Barakah al-Salah again, as we usually will greet, and say, yeah, this is a very important subject which reminds us of our Abrahamic origins. We always talk about the Abrahamic religions, being the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They're all Abrahamic, because they all have their roots in Abraham. So in this account, you see a lot of similarities, though not everything is exactly the same, yet a lot of similarities. Similarity in the area of sacrifice, similarity like my Muslim brother there said, in the area of commitment, which is devotion to God, and similarity in the area of faith, trusting God doing that which appears not to be normal, to go and sacrifice one's son. The Muslims and Christians, the narrative is slightly dissimilar in the sense that which of the sons was actually sacrificed. But I think the Christians look at Isaac as the one that was sacrificed. But the key thing is that Abraham was ready to sacrifice something precious to him in order to obey God, and in faith that even if he sacrificed that child, he knew that God is almighty and even able to still do something about the situation, no matter what God will command. He trusted God that even if everything was taken away from him, God will be there for him. And I think we have a lot to still learn from Abraham in this regard, that he was willing to give up something good, you know, in order that God will be glorified. There are times when people find it hard to give up something good. They only want to give away things that are not good, things they are tired of, things they don't like, but not something precious. And something that precious, Abraham was ready to give up. So he was quite obedient. And from the account, you will discover that God did not stop Abraham until his obedience was complete. You know, Abraham was, because the sacrifice itself was on a mountain. And Abraham kept going. He got to the foot of the mountain. He was climbing till he got to the top of the mountain, till he tied his son and was ready to sacrifice him. He took a knife, and then God said, stop. In other words, he carried his obedience to completion, and then God intervened. And it shows again that God is a God of provision. In the least expected place, God provided an alternative for Abraham to use instead of his son. So some of the things that we need to know is that there are a lot of similarities and commonalities between Christians and Muslims, and there are examples for us to follow from our scriptures of people like Abraham. And like our brother said, Abraham, this was not the first time he was giving up something. When God even called him from his home, all of the Chaldeans, leave your father's house, leave everything, and move for my sake, Abraham left everything and went. There was a case between Abraham and Lot, and Abraham delivered Lot from his enemies, and they said, okay, take all the booty. Abraham said, no, you can have it. I don't want to take it. So he was a man who lived a life of consistent sacrifice, and he was obedient to God. And I think the import of this is that we need to be sacrificial in our living. In the home, as husbands towards wives, we must be sacrificial, ready to give our time, give our precious things. As wives towards husbands, we must be sacrificial. As parents towards their children, we must be sacrificial. We must deny ourselves in order that our children will be what God wants them to be. And also, when we have opportunities in offices, in governance, you know, we must ensure that we live sacrificially, not to have everything to ourselves, but to help the poor people, the marginalized people that are in suffering. There are many people in IDP camps, people are in hospitals, and yet sometimes you see one person wants to take everything. It's not sacrificial at all. It's not ready to let go. And even sometimes you should give up your rights. There are certain things, they are your rights, they are really your right, but in order for peace to reign and in order for people to be blessed, you can even give up your rights. These are some of the things we need to do.
Thank you very much, Reverend Akonji. Let's go quickly to Obi Nairuakba. I see you nodding your head and listening to our other guests speak. And it is obvious that the concept of al-Kabir is anchored on three key points: obedience, trust, sacrifice. Let's hear your views.
Obedience, trust, sacrifice. I think it was Achebe that said, if you don't know where the rain started beating you, you won't know where it stopped. From what I've been listening to, as a student of history, I borrowed history in school, and I can tell you authoritatively that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam have the same origins. But the challenge I have is, what have we learned from history, from the origins of these religions? Reverend Konji called it the Abrahamic religions. Did we really understand the nuances of these religions that we're practicing? So you see a situation where Lagos State alone has about 10,000 churches. I have mosques all over the place. But you go to countries like Finland, Denmark, and so on, and you see them ranking #1 on almost all the human development indexes. We pray, we do all night, we do fasting, and you begin to wonder, is it manifesting in the things we do? We talked about trust, commitment. I'm married to my wife, and she doesn't need to be there when I walk around the streets every day. I see beautiful ladies and I have 2 eyes. But I'm committed to her in sickness and in health. Whether she's there or not, I'm committed to her. She's committed to me. The foundation of marriage, like you said, is trust. Someone said, if people like you, they will listen to you. I believe it was Zig Ziglar. If people trust you, they will do business with you. It comes down to trust. If I don't trust you, if there's no chemistry, I will not do business with you. As simple as driving. When you're driving and you have an advantage, and someone is in relative distress and needs to get out of a gridlock, are you ready to give up, like he said, for that person to pass? As simple as those things are. As I was coming here this morning, I knew I was rushing to the studios. I got to the stadium area and I saw a policeman trying to flag down a car. The car passed. I had passed him. I stopped and I reversed and picked him. If I follow the things that have been moving around the social media, I won't pick him. I've heard about the uniforms that were smuggled in and how some people are fake, but I have a trust and belief in the God I serve that nothing wrong will happen to me. Now, I stopped and I picked him and asked him, what's your name? He said he was going to the Villa Gate. I was coming to NTA. I made the sacrifice of driving all the way to drop this gentleman at the Villa Gate. And I was ready to explain to you, Joyce, Yago, and Kingsley, why I came in slightly late. It comes down to the story of the Good Samaritan. What sacrifices are we making? Is God going to come down from heaven and get Kingsley to give up? If Kingsley were to earn 100,000, I saw a post on Facebook, and I'm also asking, what are we even learning from what technology has done? We have the best of technology, we have radio stations, we have TV stations. What are we learning from the communication that's going around? So knowledge is short.
100,000.
I'll give you an example.
100,000, which currency?
Okay, Kingsley, choose the currency. But let's assume that Kingsley, I'll give you a scenario. If Kingsley earned 100,000 salary a month, and Kingsley gave me 5,000 of that salary. You know the implication of what Kingsley has done? Kingsley has sacrificed 2 days that he woke up early and went to work. Kingsley just gave me 2 days of his life. So I need you to understand that if we begin to understand, love your neighbor as yourself. Look at the similarities in the scriptures. It was as if when I was listening to Mrs. Anima Shaw, listening to Jibril, I could as well have been listening to my pastor, Sarah Magu, or probably listening to one of my role models, Sam Adeyemi. But there and then the scriptures, I said, the question is, these scriptures we quote, how close to our hearts are they? In our daily lives, how close is they? And I'll tell you, if you come down to African culture, it'll tell you, when the left hand washes the right hand washes the left hand. It comes and the tongue and the teeth are in the same enclave. Sometimes the teeth bites the tongue, but it is the tongue that lubricates the teeth. So they must live together. You know, when we go down into this discussion, we'll come down to all the constitutional conferences we've had, all of the issues that we've had. Do we really believe in this nation called Nigeria? The reason I'm dressed the way I'm dressed is because I believe in the country Nigeria. So I wear green, white, green. Because you have to put your mouth put your money where your mouth is. You have to practice what you preach. What I see is a lot of grammar in Nigeria, a lot of rhetorics in Nigeria, and when I get into business with people and I see their behavior, I wonder, are we really in the same place?
All right, Obinna, thank you very much. Let's pause you in the meantime. Let's hope that part of what I earn will come to you. So that I sacrifice 2 days of my earnings for you. But gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for the perspectives that you have brought. But I would like us again to take some aspects of what has been said. There are persons who would argue that the challenges of peaceful coexistence that we're having in Nigeria today arise from a number of factors. Some of them very well known. The rat race that we are in, mutual suspicion, the lack of trust, lack of respect for each and one another. And yet, one of the things that has emerged from all of this, that the season we are in today, the Eid, one of the lessons is that the God that we serve, the Allah that we serve, is one of provision. That is in the most unlikely circumstance and place. The point that Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, I mean, you would imagine that probably, there were no rams in that particular location. And there you were in the thicket, where when we were growing up in those days, you saw the cartoon illustration of the ram that was stuck in the thicket. You saw a ram there, and it's okay, use that ram instead of your son. So in the most challenging of circumstances, in the most unlikely of circumstances, the Almighty that we serve is one of provision. Why has it been so difficult for us as a people in recent decades to translate this into our daily routine of existence, such that the rat race, such that the corruption, such that the mutual suspicion and distrust that we have would be eliminated or at least attenuated, and we have peaceful coexistence? Shakirat.
Well, I think just like in every relationship, the trust is number one. We got it, or let me say we began to get it wrong, where it became difficult for us to remember why we are here in the first place. It's a known fact to every one of us that we're not just here for play, we're not just here for joke. We are here to serve God, for us to live the next life, eternal life, peacefully. But when we lose focus on why we are here, the tendency is we're going to look for what we are not likely to get. Like you said, the rat race. The tendency is we keep running up and down morning till evening, even overnight sometimes. I realize some people actually work during the night while others are asleep. So it means we keep running up and down. No trust within families, no trust within small communities. Still, of course, it goes even national, even international, as you may want to acknowledge. So I think that's where the challenge started from. If we all can sit back and ask one another, ourselves, do a deep thought on your own to say, sorry, I don't think I'm living life the way exactly I would like to live it. Because the truth is, we are all not enjoying it. It's not just about me not enjoying and then others are happy. The tendency is everyone at this point in time is not comfortable with the way things are. You hardly can travel with comfort to say, oh, I'm happy, I'm fine, I know that as I'm going, the road is free. There are places you want to go to and you think not just twice, even thrice. In fact, your parents are where you want to go to a particular part of the country and they are screaming, please don't go. Your children are not comfortable going to that part. Almost every part of the country. Even when you take it down to the level of education, no one is comfortable. The rich are looking for universities that they are not likely to get results from. They want to go to some other places, but they are just not comfortable sending the children there. The poor wants to have access to education, they most times not able to. Even when you look at the quota system and the way the educational access is all together, we are crying the girl's child in the north. In the southeast is the boys that are not willing to go to school. It's all over the place. That's because we lost focus. So individually, if we are not comfortable with our situation at this point in time, we all have to sit back and take decision on the individual level now. Don't talk about the government, don't talk about the next person to you, but talk to yourself as a person to say, come, what can I change in my own life? Because really, whether at the local government level, at the state level, at the federal level, those that represent us at the moment are actually a reflection of who we are generally as a people. So sorry, leave the other person, talk to yourself. At that point, you can say, okay, what are the things I want to be better with? What are the things I want to do differently? And of course, start with the God himself to say, okay, am I in any way obedient? Am I in any way dutiful? Am I truly committed? At that point, the tendency is for you to begin to get it right. And within yourself, you start feeling peace. And it's only when you are peaceful that you can share peace with others. If you are hurting, the tendency is to share hurt around about you. Everyone around you begins to feel the hurt. So if truly we want to be better, we want to be happy, we want to be comfortable, it means the first thing for us to do is to make change in ourselves. your person. Don't complain about the next person. You just make a change. And the tendency is when you smile at people, whether or not they like it, sometimes unconsciously just begin to smile. Because that's what you spread. And if you spread hurt, you discover that even in your space, your home, your office, your colleagues always notice that each time you're around, they are just not happy. So at some point, you begin to spread, what you feel right inside you. Even when you want to pretend, there is limit to how much you can. So for us to see a difference in the way things are around us, we need to change. We need to begin to look at, starting from being grateful for the little you have, because the truth is, lots of times we are all better than one person or the other. You may want to compare yourself to another person economically, financially, or whatever way, but the tendency is that one way or the other, you are better off. There is always something to be grateful over. So if you all cultivate gratitude attitude, it means at that point we begin to feel natural joy. We begin to derive joy in the things we do. And for whatever opportunity we have, whatever thing we need to do, we should do the best without anyone watching us. At that point, before you know it, life begins to be interesting to you too. And in the end, the tendency is even the eternal life will be very interesting. So we all need to be ready to make a change.
Thank you very much, Shakira Toriyami, for that insightful contribution. At this point, we would like to go outside the studio to join our correspondent, Abdulmalik Adio. He's at the National Eid Ground in Abuja. Let's hear from him what is going on at the moment. Malik.
Once she gives you a good card, just let me know.
Malik? All right, we'll rejoin Malik. Okay. So, Malik, give us an update of the situation right there at the Eid ground.
Oh, he's already online. Go ahead, talk. I can talk. Talk. Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Studio? Yes. Talk. You're on air.
All right, let's come back
to
the studio.
We're sure that our engineers would clear up the link to Abdul Malik, who is at the National Eid Ground. Once we have the connection to him again, we will return because national prayers, of course, will be said on that ground later on this morning. That's Abdul Malik Adio, our correspondent there in Abuja. But let's return to our studios with our guests here with us. And by the way, we already have some tweets, but let's drive the issue of God of provision and one life of consistent sacrifice. We're bringing in again the public relations officer of the Abuja Muslim Forum. How, the question that Shakira answered in great detail, from your perspective, how do we translate this idea, this faith that our God, our Almighty, is one that provides for us in the most unlikely places, in the most unlikely circumstances, into a life of sacrifice that ensures that ultimately we all live peacefully and progressively as a country?
Thank you very much. I think God is a God of provision, and but the way I think the mechanism works is that the divine instructions are there, and then we have a responsibility to interpret those divine injunctions into what we roll day in, day out. So what that implies is the spiritual life, your body, your soul kind of thing. So to a large extent, if we see our society now, we see a lot of disconnect between what we are, what we believe in spiritually, ideologically, and what the society represents. So if we first take it as, let's say, the beginning of Nigeria, so to say, when they say in team building, you have the formation stage, the storming stage, the numbing stage, and everything. I think Nigeria is going through a set of processes that how we manage it is very important. For example, the whole country was brought together, and for whatever reason, the civil war and everything. But you see now, instead of forces, bringing the country together, you see typically Muslims going to Muslim schools more and more these days, Christians going to Christian schools more and more these days. We are building more barriers in this spirit. So when we are supposed to be building trust, when we are supposed to be going extra mile for each other, it seems while we believe and share the patriarch, the Abrahamic origin for all of us. It's so important to Muslims. In fact, the Quran calls Abraham the father of all, the father of Islam. So if we share this, why are we building more and more walls? So this is a key issue that I think if you now take again between what we do in spiritual life and what the governance represents, we say Nigeria is Nigerians. We say Nigerians are religious people. We have so many churches and so many mosques. But when we get to the governance, we say no, the country is a secular state. You know, take religion out of it. I would rather think if we have a harmony between, because personally, I am a Muslim first. So if the country is structured in a way that it recognizes, I want a Christian to be able to understand me, I want to be able to understand Christian. I want us to get into governance and say, look, these are the rights, these are the sensibilities of a Christian, these are the sensibilities of a Muslim. Let's sit down and negotiate this thing. Let's not take all these issues, take them off the table and say, look, leave all that one, this is what we are doing. Then we'll have a disconnect. I think that is part of what is fueling the identity crisis. One, when I get back to the mosque, what I'm told, what I believe is different from when I come outside and we need to deal. So this societal level issue, I think, influences our interpretation of our religious beliefs. So when, with respect to your question now, the God of provision, God requires us to deliver on some things, on the physical world. Just like he saw the dream, Abraham saw the vision, he saw it consistently and he was sure this is from God. He needed to implement it. He got to his son and he was like, look, this is the vision I've seen. He had a relationship, a solid relationship with his son. So he didn't land on his son and say, Gom, I've seen a vision, and he just grabs him and everything. He had a communication with him. So this is a translation of the vision from spiritual realm into managing it properly on the physical realm. So I think, sincerely, I really think the nation and the society would find fora like this where a Muslim can communicate what he means, why he's doing what he's doing, and a Christian can communicate why he's doing what he's doing, and then we can gradually start coming together around things that we have in common. I mean, like the Reverend said, the son that was sacrificed by Abraham is in contention. There is the Muslim belief is Ismail, the Christian belief is Ishaq. No big deal. He emphasized the fact that whatever it is, Abraham was ready to sacrifice an only son. So we need to, find a way to bring the forces, more and more of these forces that understands that we have a lot more in common than in difference. And then we'll be able to isolate the extremists on both ends of the spectrum. Then we'll be growing the population of people that believe in working together, in collaborating. Because, look, there was a particular incident with the Prophet ﷺ, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. After he left Mecca to Medina, a week, he left under threat. But by the time he went to Medina, he was accepted. After a few years, he was coming back to Mecca. That time, the army, his team was large enough to come and conquer and take over Mecca. But they got to the boundary of Mecca, and the people of Mecca sent an emissary to him that, look, let's not fight war. I know you are capable. Let's discuss. Let's sign a treaty. He gave up a lot of things in that treaty just to have peace. So he negotiated a peace for a period. During that time, instead of attacking the city, they had a peaceful period, and then everybody, the whole society grew. And so the lesson from that is when you give peace a chance, development, other conversations can start. So I think God will implement his promises to us when we keep to our own side of the bargain of relying on him and managing our... In fact, sorry again, I want to add that one key thing, like a hadith says, that the heaviest thing on the scales on Judgment Day is a good character. On the Judgment Day, if they put all the scales of good deeds and bad deeds, the heaviest of them is a good character, how you relate with people and how people perceive you. Thank you. All right,
thank you very much, Jibril Ibrahim. We'll come back to you in the course of this conversation. Let's link up with Malik, who is ready now at the Eid ground to give us an update of what is going on there. Malik?
Are you ready? Hello and thanks for joining us from the studio. We're here live at the National Eid Prayer Ground in the nation's capital, where Muslim faithfuls from Abuja have converged to observe the 2 rakat prayer to commemorate the al-Kabir celebration. Today's event of the Hijjah in the Islamic calendar, which signifies the slaughtering of ram as a sacrifice made by Prophet Ismail. As you can see behind me are gaily dressed Muslims making their way into the Eid ground, and a heavy presence of security personnel to ensure that it's an Eid-free exercise. Well, to talk about the significance of today as regards slaughtering a ram, I have with me the Imam at the National Mosque. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can you speak to us as regards the significance of today, sir?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Rasulillah. Today is Salah Day. As we all know, it is the day which Muslims celebrated across the globe. This to coincide with the act of Prophet Abraham alayhi salatu wassalam, when he was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to slaughter his only son Ismail. But Allah in his infinite mercy has no intention of making Ismail to be slaughtered. He did that to test Ibrahim to see whether if he is going to submit to the will of Allah or not, and also to test Ismail himself also to know whether if he is ready to submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But alhamdulillah, when Ibrahim was commanded by Allah, this verse came to the Prophet on what Ibrahim says to his son. He said, Ya bunayya, inni ara fil manami anni azbahuka fanzur madha tara. Oh my son, I have seen, just like a dream, that I'm slaughtering you. This is a command from Allah. What is your opinion? Then the son answered, Ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar. Oh my father, do as you are directed by Allah. Satajiduni insha'Allahu min as-sabirin. Inshallah, you are going to find me the patience. So the two submitted to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that regard, Allah in his infinite mercy sent a ram from heaven to Ibrahim, and that ram was substituted with Ismail. So Ismail went free and the ram was slaughtered. That's the beginning.
Alright, having to slaughter this ram, when it comes to the spirit of sharing, should be one of the major essence of today. You can tell us other essence of today when it comes to being your brother's keepers and all of that.
The sharing formula of today's meat is this. Of course, the head of the family is expected to slaughter a ram for himself and the entire family. So when they slaughter it, it is required to share it into three parts. Part one will be kept for the people of the house. The second part will be shared among the loved ones, the friends, the neighbors. While the third one will be taken out to the less privileges, to the needy ones in the society, with regardless of their background, religion, whatever. As long as they fall under the less privileged, they are entitled to be given the third share for them to also test the festivity.
MashaAllah. How should a Muslim behave in this time?
Alhamdulillah, Muslim is expected to behave by submitting himself to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obey all the constituted authorities, which means a Muslim should respect the law of the land while doing this festivity.
Jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's the situation for now at the National Eid Prayer Ground, but I want to bring on the person in charge of police personnel to talk as regards the security situation when it comes to the National Eid Praying Ground here in the nation's capital. He's making his way to me right now, and we're getting signals by 9, inshallah. The prayer is going to start, and the Chief Imam is going to coordinate the prayer. Well, with me now, joining me is ACP to talk about Mr. Ayo. It's a pleasure, sir. All right, sir. Baraka de Salah, yes, Baraka de Salah. Sorry, we'd like you to talk on the security situation here at the National Eid Prayer Ground. How peaceful and how coordinated is this?
God, all things are possible. And the human aspect of Abuja is providing security for an effective and safe solar application. The general police and his intelligence and his colleagues and other agencies. That's why we're here. We've synergized and we've done our deployment. It is not just a up from today. The program has been on for about 2 days prior to this moment. But this is the climax of it. We are assuring every Nigeria and our Muslim brothers coming around that we have a safe environment, a safe city.
All right, many thanks, Mr. Ayo. All right, well, that's the situation here at the National Eid Prayer Ground. The watchword and the message is, be your brother's keeper and share whatever you have in good faith and in oneness together. It's back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Abdul Malik, at the Eid Ground in Abuja. And the message is the same. It's still about sharing, caring, sacrifice and obedience. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with our discussion in the studio.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's take some of your tweets that have come in now via our Twitter handle at NTAGMN. Mike Ayanko has this tweet. Says the importance of peaceful coexistence in Nigeria cannot be overemphasized, and this can be achieved and sustained when we see each other as one, irrespective of ethnicity, religion, or otherwise. It has potentials of enhancing growth and development. Now, this can also be sustained when extant laws of the land are obeyed and offenders are adequately reprimanded to serve as deterrents. Now, the law enforcement agencies should be on top of their duties, and leaders of communities should always preach peace to their members.
And this one is coming from Dele Jack Solomon Meji. Tweets, NIREC and other interfaith societies must rise above board. This is because they are yet to achieve religious harmony in Nigeria. However, interfaith training and promotion of peaceful coexistence is recommended as a veritable tool for achieving religious tranquility in Nigeria.
Olu Abe tweets that fairness and equity only would encourage and sustain peaceful coexistence in Nigeria. Let us do away with tribalism, nepotism, and other practices in this great nation, because they will do us more harm than good.
And the next one is coming from Festus Akimboyewa. He tweets, the sacred books of our two main religions promote peaceful coexistence. Sadly, instead of using the religions to build growth, development, and peaceful coexistence, many politicians are promoting religion for their own self-seeking interests to seize power. This must stop.
Amogbalaho has this tweet. Now, peaceful coexistence will be guaranteed in an atmosphere of equity, fairness, and egalitarianism. Anything short of this will lead to chaos. Individuals in different engagements of life must see and treat each other beyond ethno-religious inclination.
The next one is coming from Sani Michael Omakuji, and he tweets, kudos to NTA's crew as you try to bring pressing matters for public discussion. However, it baffles me a lot if our leaders take time out to watch these programs on NTA. They preach against hate speech, but look at how they're throwing hate words against each other. It's so sad. It is not enough to talk about peaceful coexistence on TV and radio when leaders are still dining and whining with issues like gross nepotism, religionism, sectionalism, individualism, ethnicity, hooliganism, abuse of power, and of course favoritism. They should lead by example.
All right, those are the set of tweets we'll take in the meantime. We have other tweets, but let's return very quickly to our guest. Let's bring in again the Reverend Israel Akanji. Reverend Israel Akanji, that's a point, of course, very important points that you guys have raised this morning. One issue that I would like us to drive home is one articulated by the Public Relations Officer of the Abuja Muslim Forum, that's Jibril Ibrahim. And it talks about, it poses a question, why are we building more walls? Considering the Abrahamic origins of the major faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islamic religion. Why are we building more walls? And along with that question is, why have the extremists tended to gain more attention and relevance in our existence today?
Well, thank you very much. I think the event of Abraham sacrificing his son is quite important for us to, again, look into as a means of changing our attitude towards one another, of building walls and erecting pillars against one another. If you look at the encounter again of Abraham and the sacrifice of his son, we can call it a divine and human encounter. First, God was involved and man was involved. Abraham, in obedience to God, took his son for sacrifice. God in his almightiness and mercy looked at Abraham's obedience and decided to bring a substitute. So Abraham did something and God also did something. There was a partnership, divine-human partnership, that was realized in that occasion. And I think part of our problem is that we don't give room for God's own part in our lives. When we do things, we think we are the Alpha and Omega. We are to start it and complete it for ourselves. So I must get everything for my children, get everything for my family, get everything for my people, my ethnic group, my religious group. I must just make sure I do everything. We don't give room to God that I'm limited. There is a little I can do, and I must give God room to do the other part. If people give God room in their lives, they will not take that which is supposed to be given to other people and make it their own, then which means they are not giving room for God in their lives. And these are things that we are very good in speaking theoretically, but when it comes to practice, we do not practice it. So I believe that if we give room for God to also play his role in our lives and do your best and hand over everything to God. Like somebody, John Wesley, will say, work hard as if it all depends on you. Pray hard as if it all depends on God. So we should do our part and let God do his part. And if we trust God, my son, when it is time, he will make it in life. God will be there for him. Let me just show him God, to be obedient to God. And he too will receive God's blessings like Abraham received God's provision when he was obedient. Rather than, I want to acquire for my children, for my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren, our generation should continue to be on top. Now, see, even experience has shown that people who have gathered and gathered for themselves, it has not lasted several generations. Before our very eyes, things have been collapsing. So people, let's go back to God and trust him and then hand over that trust to our children, that they should also trust God, that to know that they can't do everything for themselves. The Bible says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Whatever you do, unless God blesses it, it's in vain. Gather whatever, God will scatter it if God is not involved. So if our children know this, then they will be able to treat others well. Whether they are Christians or non-Christians, they will love their neighbors as themselves. They will do unto others what they expect others to do for them. And they should put their trust in God. If you put your trust in God, you will not have hypertension. You will be okay with life. Many benefits will follow, and God will also bless you. So let's carry our theory into practice.
Thank you very much,
Joe, I know you have a question. That will say that you will not have hypertension. You will be at peace with yourself.
Peace with
and
yourself.
Shakira says that the inner peace that you have is what you radiate outside.
Yes, I want us to bring in Obina quickly into the conversation. I like this issue of talking about breaking down the walls that we have now. I remember growing up, we didn't have these walls. We were living in a neighborhood where when it's time for al-Kabir, Parents will even buy us outfits to wear and celebrate with our Muslim friends. And when it's Christmas, it was the same thing. We didn't know anything about some of the things we see today. Where did we get it wrong? Why the spirit of covetousness, of let me acquire for myself and my family? Because I believe that that is the crux of the problem we have today. Obina.
Okay, I like what Jibril said. So I'm first of all a Muslim. I'm also first of all a Christian. And I like to go back to the scriptures. The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. The same knowledge is profitable to direct. It's as simple as the fact that my grandfather, Let Akunne Onora, was the president of the Igbo Union in Kano in the 1920s. I got to Kano in 1991 for the National Youth Festival, and I called my mom. I'm in Kano, and she told me, tell me specifically where you are. Are you by the cinema? Are you close to Sabongeri? We have our houses there. My mother speaks more Hausa than Igbo. I don't know if you're getting to where I'm going. My mom was in WTC Kano. That was where we were lodged in 1991 under Ibrahim Babangida for the National Youth Festival. What conscious effort are we making towards national cohesion? These are issues. We're building barriers. It's a lack of understanding. Joy, have you noticed that money does not have color of religion? You have Igbos in Afghanistan. Well, somebody jokingly said, anywhere you go, you don't see Igbos there. Nothing is going on there. Now, when it comes to money making, when it comes to business, when it comes to entrepreneurship, we forget all of these things. But the challenge I have is that we become what we hear. So what do we tell our children when the doors are locked? Behind the walls, what do we tell them? This morning I've already sent messages. Last night I sent messages, Barka de Salah, happy Eid al-Mubarak, and so on. So my friends are happy with me. Now these are my business friends, these are my associates, my business school friends, and so on. Now, I have no problem with that. But when I get to certain platforms, some person wants to convince me that my own friend, Bala Mohammed, who lost his mother 2 days ago, whom I called yesterday and said, bros, Yane, Dala, sorry, where are you? He said, he was going to Niger State. There's no problem between me and Bala Mohammed. But someone wants to convince me that Bala Mohammed is my problem. Am I mad? I don't think so. What I think is, can we begin to grow that consciousness in nation building? And nation building is work, just like she said. Marriage is work. Marriage is not the day you wear that white cloth and black suit and you go. It's not 45 minutes, I joined you. No. The real work starts when you get into the home and pressing toothpaste becomes a quarrel. So as simple as that is, we need to consciously tell ourselves that there is no problem in being different. Can we understand our differences? Martin Luther King said, peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice. And what is justice? You don't get into a government position, which God himself ordered your steps to get into. And you get an appointment, and the first thing you do is to amass wealth and amass wealth. And I need you to understand, like Reverend Koji said, we have seen those things go bad, because those things were not righteously gotten. And what I see is pure scarcity mentality. If the average Nigerian has an abundance mentality, to understand that you have only one tummy. And like I was listening to Pastor Enenche some time ago, he's a medical doctor, and he said, no matter what you eat, if you like eat Transcorp and Nikon Luxury and all of them put together, if you don't go to the Mr. White, you know what I mean by Mr. White, the other side, you would just suffer from constipation, and you will have health problems. If we can understand that it's not in what we eat, it's about what we give to others. Life is about others. It's not about you. So consciously, I believe strongly that if we can begin to talk to ourselves, to understand that after this whole earth, like she said, we're going to end somewhere and we're going to give account of our lives. And when it comes to relationship with other human beings, seek first to understand before you are understood. Like Stephen Covey was saying, the 7 habits of highly effective people. Part of the challenge we have in Nigeria is that we don't even try to understand the next person before we try to push our own agenda. Once you get the other person to understand you, you will be amazed at how the other person will give you way. A philosopher said this, and I'll say this, that if you want anything in life, get as many other people as possible to get what they want, and you get what you want. And I've seen that happen. I've seen people just give me advantage because they feel that sometime in the past, I gave them some form of advantage, and it's time for reciprocity. Sacrifice. I made some sacrifices for them and said, bros, just carry go. It's like football. Nobody, no can stay in top 9 and score goals. Somebody in the defense pass the ball to Okocha in the middle. And I'll say this and I'll shock you. At the World Cup, when Ahmed Musa got that ball from Moses, did he say, because he's a Christian that passed the ball to me, I will not receive it? When he scored the goal, Joy Esiagu, your name is Joy Esiagu, you're probably a Christian. Didn't you jump and shout, "Go!" It was when you kind of said, what has happened here? We didn't mind whether Ahmed Musa was a Christian. When he scored the second goal, many people say, Ahmed Musa. I saw some Christian girls saying, Ahmed Musa, please marry me. What am I trying to say? Everybody became a Nigerian instantly. And when you watch them at the Olympics or at the World Cup, some people are using chaplets. Some are using the Muslim prayers. And we're together. So what has gone wrong with us? We allow the politicians to run our lives.
That is the point. That not just politicians, Shakira. How come that we have allowed the extremists to run our system, to run our lives, drive us further apart, resulting in the erection of all kinds of wars?
Well, really, I think, like I said earlier, it's about individuals that come together to form a community. If you do not know clearly where you're coming from and where you're going, the tendency is anybody, anyone can give you where to go to. If you are not sure what exactly you want for yourself, anyone can give whatever they believe in for you to run. And unfortunately, I think there is need for us to do an adjustment, or call it a review, to our educational system. At the moment, emphasis are so much on the economic side of education. Unfortunately, even the economic side is not properly taught to us, or we are probably having some wrong orientation around the place, and that's because we are not very clear where we are going to. It will do us a lot of good if we ensure that an average Nigerian, even before he reaches teenage years, is being taught how to understand himself or herself, call it visioning. Every child understands this is who I am, because truly no two human beings are the same. Even if you are from the same father and mother, same environment, we are all different. I was shocked when myself and siblings were doing, call it a review or a gist about our parents, about our family. Sincerely, 5 of us had different things to say in the end as adults. So what am I trying to say? You could have children in the same environment, being brought up by the same set of people, but of course are different personalities. The traits are different, the genes are different, and even as we are all here today, if you tell every one of us to write about this same studio we are in, the tendencies we are all going to write about different things. We may have some things in common, but we are not likely to write the same thing, because what we are going to be seeing will be dependent on our past experience, our exposure in life, what interests us, among other things. So it will be very good that we introduce this to our children, maybe not even at the formal education level, even as mothers, as fathers. Let's educate, the thorough education, let it be done, such that a child understands this is who I am, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, these are opportunities around me, these are likely threats. At that point, I can be clear where exactly I'm heading to. And it's more difficult for anyone to easily influence me. I'm not saying it's not totally possible, but the extent of influence gets reduced. At that point, we can begin to tell ourselves, this is where I'm going to, these are things I won't dabble into. Sincerely yours, I won't agree with you that there are any extremists around really getting things done the way they want it. A lot of times things we find around ourselves are things we really want. Sorry, we are most times not sincere. We are most times not sincere.
Well, you're opening up a new perspective. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time now. We might not be able to get into that region. But let's take our last set of comments from our viewers before we give our appreciation to our guests. Victor Ohioswama, for peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, we need to build institutions of trust that will strengthen our unity. The leadership and followership must imbibe the spirit of togetherness and promote the ideas of unity instead of divisiveness. Happy Leader Fitri celebration.
Sani Michael Omakuji, here we are preaching peaceful coexistence, but some people kill in the name of religion. On this note, I want the Imam and Pastor to point out to Nigerians where in Quran and Bible God says we should kill our fellow human beings in the name of religion. It is barbaric and sad.
Kelechi GC has this tweet. Now, to peacefully coexist in Nigeria, we as a people must learn to draw boundaries between our religious lives and national lives. We must learn to find a way of keeping the Nigerian dream alive, irrespective of our different religious beliefs.
I guess that's about...
There's one from Charles here. There's a question there from Charles. We'll get the answer. It says, the question is for the Christian cleric. Is there anything wrong in eating the Salah meat? If I get one today, I will eat.
I am waiting to get out of the studio to eat, but let's hear from you.
Well, thank you. There was one that also caught my attention that on this issue of killing, and I want to say that Christian clerics and the Muslim clerics, we have the greatest opportunity to meet with people very regularly. Every Sunday, every Saturday, and we meet with people across the stratas of the society, high and low and medium, and we are called when children are born, we are called during marriages, we are called when people die. We have such great opportunity to pass on the relevant message for peaceful coexistence, and we should not be seen to be the ones promoting any such violence and division in the nation. I think we should keep that. And I want to say this without forgetting that everybody should remember we came to this world poor, and we will leave this world poor. You came naked, without clothes or anything. When you will leave this world, all these houses and all these things you are amassing that is making you to treat your neighbor badly, you will leave everything. You will not go with anything. Let's remember that always. And it should now make us to be sensible in treating one another well. Now, concerning eating the meat, there are different camps, we must admit. There are those who believe they shouldn't eat the meat because it's a sacrifice. And because for Christians, there's one sacrifice, and that's Jesus Christ, and he covers for all. Therefore, eating the meat is like you already believe in Christ as sacrifice, and others you shouldn't eat the sacrificial meat. But many of such people, they will eat anything you give them except the meat, because they will feel that you are calling it sacrifice, and I don't believe in sacrifice. So Christians will say we take Holy Communion, and when we take it and it represents all sacrifice. So we don't want to take. Others will say, well, anything received with thanksgiving, you pray over it and sanctify it. Everything is sanctified. And so if you even think it's a sacrifice, I don't think it's a sacrifice. I believe you are just sharing with me. I'm happy you are sharing with me, and therefore I give thanks to God. I lay hands. So these are the two camps. So you are trying to ask me what I would do. If I'm giving meat, I would take the meat and pray over it. I share with my Christian Muslim brothers. And if you are saying it's sacrifice, for me, it's no sacrifice in the sense that I believe you are sharing with me. I don't think it's sacrifice as to take away my sin, because I know that I believe in another sacrifice, which is Jesus Christ. These are some slight things, but I will eat and felicitate with a Muslim, pray over it, and ask God to join me in living a sanctified life. Thank you.
All right. Reverend Dr. Israel Akanji is Chairman, Christian Association of Nigeria North Central Zone. We'd like to thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you.
Obinan Rakwa, motivational speaker. Delight having you on the program again today. Thanks. And our thanks also to the Public Relations Officer of the Abuja Muslim Forum, Jibril Ibrahim. He's an engineer. Jibril Ibrahim, thanks a lot for being around. And last but not the least, Mrs. Shakira Toriyomi, an educational consultant. Thanks a lot for being with us on the program today. You. All right, so that does it for our conversation. Let's go over now to our sports segment.
And that is Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you for your time. I am Joy Useago and wishing you a happy Salah celebration.
I'm Kingsley Osagolo. I join Joy also in wishing you the very best of the day. Barka de Salah to all our viewers. Good Morning Nigeria returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy your holidays.